All rise. Honorable County Court of Travis County is now in session. The Honorable Lonnie Taylor will be presiding.
Good evening, everybody. Invocation and pledge will be led by our District 7 commissioners this evening. Our invocation, Chris Gregory, if you don't mind.
Lord, we thank you for this day, this beautiful weather that you gave us today. We thank you for allowing us to gather here. We thank you for the freedom that we have to gather here. Freedoms to choose our leaders, to offer our opinions to those leaders, to have those opinions heard. We ask your blessing in making the best decisions that we can for the people of Travis County. We ask these things in the name of your son, Jesus. Amen.
Our pledges this month will be by Judy Kerr.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time, if we could get Madam Clerk to please call a roll call.
Beverly Atwood, Tommy Belcher, Shane Burton, Alan Carmen,
Here.
Brian Crook,
Here.
Will Dennis,
Here.
Jerry Ford,
Here.
Chris Gregory,
Here.
Jeff Gregory,
Here.
Bubba Gregory,
Here.
Landon Gully,
Present.
Judy Kerr,
Here.
David Nollner,
Here.
Leslie Overman,
Here.
Mark Presley,
Here.
Amber Russell,
Here.
Lonnie Taylor,
Here.
David Thomas,
Here.
Steve Whitaker.
Here.
18 present, 1 absent.
All right. You all have received a copy of the January 27, 2025 minutes. If there'll be no changes or amendments, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes. First by Jerry, second by Mr. Crook. All right, all in favor? Any opposed? So moved. Thank you. Is there any announcements that anybody has that needs to come before the commission this evening before we get started? Don't all talk at once. All right, thank you. Before we set the agenda, I need to bring to your attention that there's one item that needs to be added to the agenda for the month. You should have a hard copy there at your seat as a handout. That is Resolution 2025-03821, where we are adopting County Road Mockingbird Lane. So at this time, do I have a motion to set the agenda for the and added with the added resolution? Motion and second. Crook and Gregory. Thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. At this time is when we ask for the citizens' response to any of the agenda items. If you wish to speak to the commission, please sign in at the podium and you'll be called to address the commission at the proper time. If anybody would like to speak that hasn't signed in, please do. Okay. Also, we have 4 candidates that looks like they would like to present themselves for consideration for the 3rd district, and they've all signed in and they've all visited with Mr. Paxson, so we're good to go. At this time, I'd like to ask if Mayor McCall has anything he'd like to address us with.
Oh, there are about 6 items, and I'll make this brief. Trade Park was signed off on the state this week, so it's complete. Get a chance. If you haven't had a chance to see it, please get down there and take a look. We'll probably plan some kind of grand opening sometime later in the spring. On the Ward School, 8 acres, EPA has finished their phase 2 evaluation. We haven't heard from them, but should right away. The broadband grant, identification grant on identifying properties that could be brought back to from where they were. We were promised by the engineering company that they'd have us report by the end of the month, so hopefully we'll get that this week. We have chosen an architect for the Ward School project, and that should be moving ahead pretty quickly now. The HVAC system in the courthouse is waiting for a compressor, so as soon as we get that should be ready to go. That's kind of it. I would mention the curbs tonight, but we're waiting for better weather to work on the curbs. If I don't mention that, here, Rich, will ask me about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Kerr?
All the trouble we have with air conditioning and heat, is that under warranty at the courthouse?
It is under one.
Thank you.
The pressure is under one.
Okay, committee reports. I'll start this. Steering met on February 4. And basically, I'm not going to go through what each of the subcommittees, they'll cover that with their own statements, but I will say that the Jake brake ordinance and the surplus vehicle ordinance was found that after steering, that those two had already gone through their subcommittee with a favorable. I didn't have that information at the time. So that will become, that's coming forward with a favorable recommendation. And then also, as it is, we have gotten this taken care of, but Leslie Overman's going to be adding 3 to personnel. And also, I'd like to address one more time, especially to the chairs, location of meetings. It has been brought up, and it's a valid point that we should probably, as much as possible, try to schedule subcommittee meetings as well as anything else in this venue or across the street whenever possible. There are other options, you know, with the mayor's office or at the water board building, but I understand that, you know, it's a little more accessible for people, and it's probably a lot easier for the public at large. I mean, it makes sense. So for your consideration when you're scheduling your subcommittee meetings, please keep that in mind, okay? All righty. Moving on, Parks and Recreation met on February 11. Mr. Gregory?
Had several things we discussed. We had Miss Alicia Ellie McKinley Horn here. She made a presentation to us on the proposed local Parks and Recreation Fund grant through the state, which would be $600,000 with a 50% match for the items that we put on to do, like the tennis, pickleball, volleyball courts, expanded walking trails, and etc. The county has submitted a letter of intent to apply. Deadline to apply was April 1st. Grant proposal will include a $50,000 to update county's master plan required every 5 years. Committee raised concern over the required match. The motion was declined for applying for this grant at this time. We still had questions. We just might pay $50,000 just to get them to sign off on it again. That was a question raised, and we declined it on that. Like the mayor said, playground final inspection was scheduled for February 13th, and he said it did pass. And like he said, if y'all hadn't been down there, it's really nice. I've had my grandkids down there several times. Then we still, Cliff Delee presented a quote from Sinorama for $1,182.95 to create a 4x8 board with all the names from the wood slats. Names would be about a 1/4 inch. The LED lights can be added to the new board by public works staff. And he had a board set up in here with all them wood slats, a big, huge board, and it had a lot of names where he'd sand it off and they look good. But it was gonna take like 18 of them boards to put all them slats in, and we didn't know exactly where we could put all them that size around down there. So we decided to do the panel deal, sign around. Then we discussed the 2025 pool season. Talk about redoing the pool, but I think more or less put on maybe after this pool season we can look about trying to redo the pool. And that was about it. Our next meeting is March 11th at 6 o'clock.
Thanks. Anybody have any questions for Bubba? Okay, moving on. Public Works met on February 11. Commissioner Thomas?
Yes, we met and discussed we postponed discussion on the trash pickup because we still haven't gotten an updated contract. So we don't know how much that's going to go up or if it's going to go up, the charge that we have to pay to Smith County. So we can't really discuss how much we need to change any trash collection fees, but we don't know what it's going to cost us to get it. Moved on to the generator discussion. I set out using Caterpillar's summary set up as specs to send out for more quotes. We are looking at that. Commissioner Allen reached out to the two engineers at Tri-County to discuss the actual size that we needed for the building based on the actual electricity the building uses. So we now have a more accurate account for what size generator we need based on those numbers. So we're waiting on the rest of those bids to come in, and we'll be discussing those bids to see which company we want to look at. There's a lot of discussion on some of the bid parameters that Caterpillar put. So we'll have to discuss that with the other people who bid to see what their answers are. It's looking like maybe Caterpillar might have overbid the project. We're still sorting through all that. Also discussed the administration building. When I took over as chairman, I went over to all the elected officials in the building and we're discussing, what their needs were in that building. I've heard for several years about, they didn't have enough room for this department or that. When the water department moved out, it freed up a lot of room in that building. Rita got moved over into the old water department, that freed up her office. Codes and zoning, that building, that little office there in the building is, it's too small for the office. And so talking with her, talking with Cindy, talking with Candace, and talking with the mayor's office about, what those needs might be for the next 10, 15 years. We have some minor adjustments we can make moving non-load bearing walls to be able to remodel a section at a time, possibly. And so we're looking into that cost and seeing what that's going to look like. We'll be bringing that forward at a later date.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for David? Okay, moving on. Audit met February 20, Ms. Atwood.
Yes, we met in regards to our 2024 audit findings from the comptrollers. We did end up with 3 findings. One from the office of the county mayor building.
I did.
Some funds were not deposited within 3 days of collection. Water sewer utility department, the office failed to properly issue purchase orders, which indeed was a repeat finding. Office of Director of Schools, the school federal projects funds had a cash overdraft of 2106 on June 30th of 2024. Corrective action plans have been put in place for those. The audit committee did prefer for water and sewer to do some more internal watching on their audit finding and report back to us on a quarterly basis moving forward. So they're willing to do that, but other than that, all findings have been put to a cease and we don't have a further meeting scheduled at this time.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Atwood? Okay, well, due to my chicken scratches, I accidentally jumped order there. So at this time, I'd like to hear from Budget and Finance. They met on February 18th. Commissioner Gully, I have many apologies.
We have no budget amendments, so budget went through the cash balances on hand and went through your each account, each fund at this time up through what should be 58%. I guess the biggest part of discussion, hopefully this week's been a lot better in Ms. Carmen's office at this, as a meeting last week. I guess one thing that sort of led a lot of discussion and conversation was the fact that our property tax seems to be coming in a little under its norm at this time. I know I've heard from her in the last couple of days. It's been a little busy the last week.
I went in there today. She said she was $81,000 short from last year and she still got the rest of this week to go. I mean, it's gonna be. I was gonna ask the same. I went in and asked her today.
So that was really where we were sitting at. That meeting had no budget amendments on tonight's agenda as well. So nice to see those every now and then.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Gully? Again, my apologies for jumping order.
I will mention this. Sorry, I failed to mention when I was looking back at my notes. The impact fees, I think that was handled last week. Maybe, no, it's going to go further. There was a amendment to our minutes, the way that it had been stated that $1,500 would go to general fund from impact fees, and any amount over that $1,500 would go into the 171, which is capital projects. Any amount for any of the three funds, that are proposed, doesn't matter, whatever happens with impact fees, if they haven't changed, don't matter, wherever they sit right now. The goal is that 1,500 goes to general fund and any amount over that goes into capital projects. When you think about impacts, you're talking about what is it impacting the town? That is placed in those, these capital projects, future outlay projects.
Thank you. Anybody have any further questions? Okay. Codes and zoning met on February 20, Mr. Thomas.
So that we took, under advisement, the motion that came out of budget finance. We looked at both the current setup, how, just sending everything to, back to general. We looked at what they had, requested, the 1,500, there and that's going to, 171. We also looked at a 30-70 split, and Rosalie had put the 30-70 split in there, in the discussions because of the software that she's using. She was thinking, thought maybe that might be easier for the software to be able to plug all the numbers in, having just easy computations there. We looked at it based on residential, commercial, and industrial, and broke it down. There really wasn't any difference when it came down to it, doing a 30-70 split or doing a 1,500, and then, with residential, it was almost the exact same number. That by taking the 15%, the 1,500 and putting it into the general was pretty much 30%. So, we decided that as a committee, it was I got a motion and it was passed with a favorable to do it that way so that both budget and codes and zoning were on the same page. So that is the way we will present the impact fee next month's meeting. So that 1,500 would go to general, and everything above that will go to the 171.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Thomas? Do you have anything else from that?
We were also discussing the burn permit. I was talking with Chief Beller today. Oh, sorry, sir. Chief Beeler. And
It's a couple letters.
and so we're trying to figure out the timing on the processing time he needs for a burn permit and for how long that burn permit will be good for. So once we have that nailed down, then we can add that to the ordinance we have drawn up. We'll give that to Mr. Beller and let him review that. And then hopefully that'll be ready for the full commission next month also. That will clean up most of the business we had that came over from last year. We'll be starting the discussion on the PUD ordinances for a new zoning criteria. That'll be our next meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Gully, I didn't know if he answered your questions. I want to make sure you were recognized if you had something.
The budget is the motion and second that came out of there for that ordinance was to state it in the same way that budget and finance. Is that what I understood?
Yes.
All right, perfect.
100%. So we get to look forward to that one next month. Okay. Moving on, our first responders met on February 24. Ms. Amber, can you give us a report on that?
So our meeting was this evening. Matt Beatty was not able to present his information. We did have Rescue give their information. They're considering changing bylaws for more than 20 members to be on the department. Spoke more about repairs, and I think some heads are going to get together to discuss their building. And there's a new generator that's going to be ordered soon for one of their vehicles. As far as law enforcement goes, we talked about the possibility of a future PA system in the courtrooms in the future, and the tower for communications that'll come in at Gravel Hill. Also, comparable pay for full-time or other insurance options were mentioned, and so that will probably need to come up in personnel.
We do have two ordinance coming in tonight from law enforcement, the Jake brake and surplus vehicles that are going out to Blount County. Fire department, they have signed a 3-year contract with Vector for their training, and they have spoke with a architect to get hard numbers for housing additional vehicles today. Our next meeting will be March 24th at 12 p.m.
Okay, well, thank you. Do we have any other reports from anything that we missed? I just want to make sure. Yes, Leslie.
Be here Tuesday night at 5 o'clock.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to active business at this point. Yes, next Tuesday. The first point is the appointments for the Personnel Committee. You'll find that on page 21 of your packets. And the purview of this is it's been requested to add additional members to the Personnel Committee. And then as per our resolution 2024-18-815, it is set that the commission subcommittees says committee members may be added and or removed as needed throughout the year by vote of the commission. It's right now it's slated that the members to be added to personnel are Beverly Atwood, Alan Carmen, and Cliff Saley. Do we have any concerns or questions about these appointments? That was my next one. Motion and a second to approve. All right. All in, huh? Lane McGully. Okay. All in favor? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much for that. It's going to be a big help for her. Okay, resolutions. This is coming to you favorable from the First Response Subcommittee, and that is Resolution 2025-02-820 for the surplus vehicles. You'll find that the details of that on page 24 of your packet. This resolution has been reviewed and recommended by the subcommittee in their January 27th meeting. Basically the crux of this is Sheriff Russell would like to donate 2 timed out patrol vehicles to Blount County to be used for their training. It's an important piece here. Yes, Mr. Gully. Okay. Ms. Landon and Beverly. All in favor? Any opposed? So moved. Thank you. This next one here, this is for resolution 2025-03-821. This is to adopt County Road Mockingbird Lane. And again, you'll see your handouts that are there. The Highway Department will be adopting Mockingbird Lane. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah.
As we're going through this one, I don't know if this is for Mr. Scruggs or Ms. Rosalie, I'm not sure who needs best answer this one. What is the number of homes in a subdivision before the highway has to have a turning lane? I don't know, I have no idea.
A good question. So do we need to get, yes, David?
So that the turning lanes off the state highway is determined by CDOT. And I've never heard an exact, I know if the property that Mockingbird's on had been added to the property behind it that you access for Melrose, that 10 acres, the two together, which would have been about 70 homes, would have required a turning lane. But I don't know what the minimum of that is, but TDOT determines that.
I do know that TDOT determines that. I just would like to know where we said, is there a chance we're fixing to get hit with, hey, you've got to put in a turning lane here?
A good question.
I remember this discussion coming up 2 years ago when this place was being built. That's the only reason I say that, y'all.
Absolutely.
Plain and simple. I know it was discussed then, so I don't know where it sits today. I don't want us to inherit that turning lane.
Mr. Thomas.
So with this particular project, when it came for planning, that was addressed. because of the number of homes that are in there, TDOT did not require a turn lane for this subdivision. Because it can't be added on to as it currently was approved.
He may have answered my next question. Can this subdivision be at all extended, added on to it?
There is a right of way that goes back to the Linville property, but that has not been approved for, through planning. That would have to come before, and then that subdivision would then be responsible for the turning lane, not the county.
I wanted that to come out of discussion. I actually.
Thank you. We need that on the minutes. Thank you.
I wanted the rest of it to hear what went on in that. If one more home, it was my understanding 2 years ago, had been added to the subdivision, it would have been required that the developers put in a turning lane. If one more home gets added to the subdivision, somebody's going to be responsible for a turning lane.
And it
I don't
is,
think they'll be cheap on the state highway.
they're not. And it sounds like that would be on the backs of the developer. Is that correct? Yeah, we'll get that on the minutes. Thank you. Any other questions regarding this before we have a motion on this?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Chris Gregory. We have a second. Second by Brian Crook. All in favor? Any opposed? So moved. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, this next takes us to ordinances. We'll hold a public hearing before moving into the second reading for 2 ordinances. We're going to open the floor for public hearing of ordinance 314-2025-01 and ordinance 315-20202. 2025-01 is the blasting permit, and 20202 is rezoning A1 to R1 on Sleepy Hollow. That should be the handout that you have, the Sleepy Hollow piece, and then, which is, as it's actually included in your packet this time. And then the blasting permit you'll find on page 26 of your packet. Okay, if there's anyone here that would like to speak to either of these items, please. I have to ask 3 times. Is there anybody here present that would like to speak to these items? Is there anybody here present that would like to speak to either of these items? Is there a motion to close the public hearing? Jerry and Amber. Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? So carried. Thank you. This is a second reading. We'll move on to the second reading for ordinance 314-2025-01 blasting permit. Again, that's on page 26 of your packets. This is setting a fee for $100 for blasting. This permit also allows for the collection of information on the project and the companies that are doing the blasting, so we can disseminate to the emergency departments and et cetera as we need throughout the county. Do we have any questions or anything from the commissioners? Mr. Belly. We have a motion and a second by Mark Presley. All in favor? Oh, Jerry?
I got one question.
Yes, sir.
Do we have anything anywhere in place? Let's say, you come out there and 1/4 mile from my house and you blow side of that hill off, which is gonna happen sooner or later. Who's responsible if they tear up the house? And I'm not talking about the state now, I'm talking about locally. If it happened locally, do we have anything in place anywhere to take care of a person's home if someone gets this permit and does their blasting, but they tear up the mayor's house over there? Do we have anything to protect them in that situation or anyone?
It's a good question. Mr. Thomas or Rosalie, do either of you have anything you could add to this?
So currently what you would do, well, currently, before this is enacted, you would have to try to figure out who was the one doing the blasting and try to track them down.
But if,
With this being passed, this will give you that information. You can file a complaint with law enforcement. You've got the legal action. But as far as an insurance policy that the county has to cover that individual, no, there is nothing in place. But this gives you the information so that you as a citizen can take it and
you have a name at that point, that you have a name that's legally obligated to that destruction.
If there's ordinance, you would,
with the ordinance, yes, sir.
if they followed it and got a permit.
Yes. Well, if they don't get a permit, then they're in a lot more trouble than that. Could be, yes, absolutely will be.
That you've got the name anyway, even without this ordinance, because the state, the state governs blasting, we don't. This is just, we're getting money, so
We're gathering information too and putting people on alert that it's going to be happening.
it is possible to get the information without having to do this.
So at this point, do I have a motion to approve? Oh, I already got that. Yeah, sorry. It was, yeah, Gully Presley. Got you. So all in favor? Any opposed?
No.
Chris and. Okay. Okay, motion carried. Thank you. So now we're going to move on to the second reading of ordinance 315-2025-02. That is the rezoning of A1 to R1 on Sleepy Hollow. That is on page 27, again, in your packets. The owner is requesting for a change from A1 to R1 for a residential build on Sleepy Hollow. Ms. Myhan, do you have anything you'd like to add to summary for this?
As we found before, this is 1.91 acres, which does not meet the definition of an A1 parcel of land. So zoning it to R1 will have it meet the setback rules and the conforming lot to build on.
Motion approved.
All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carried. This will be the first reading for ordinance 316-2025-03 Jake Brake or regulations. This is covered on page 31. There's some more information on 32 in your packet. It's the first reading of this ordinance that sets the regulations on Jake braking in urban services district area. To define that, it's in urban, or this is covering the urban services district. This has been reviewed and recommended by First Response Services Committee at their January 27 meeting and passed favorably. Sheriff Russell, do you have anything you need to add again at this time?
The only thing we'll be responsible for is buying signs and stuff. The TDOT said they would not do it. It'd be up to us to be an urban service.
And then also enforce it, right? Okay, Mr. Gully?
State would say they'd also have this in person.
It's kind of my understanding, we may already have an ordinance for, on about excessive exhaust noise. Does that already exist? For excessive exhaust?
This is different from that.
It is noise, yes. I see the puzzled look. Yeah, I feel the same. It is noise, but it is a different source of noise, I would say. This is going to prohibit this in urban services.
A lot of urban service districts got these, a lot of your cities, and for that reason, where we can enforce it.
You have anything else, Mr. Gully?
I'm not talking about the noise where it's like, hey, they got a loud music playing over here. It's kind of my understanding that we might have an exhaust ordinance already on the books.
That I'm not aware of. Do we need to?
Exhaust.
But this is different, all different categories of that.
Yes, sir. Mr. Ford.
We have trucks coming through here all the time from other counties. How they gonna know that?
Signage.
We have a sign board. He'll have to have something, huh?
Yeah, he's gonna get signage up. Yes, sir, Mr. Nallner. We have a motion. Second by Mr. Ford. All in favor? Any opposed?
No.
One no, Mr. Miller. Okay, that covers the first reading. One and one position. Sorry? I'm sorry, I make sure I didn't miss anything. Hard to see in here. You have notaries or from right there. Okay, the public notary application approval. Ms. Crowder's presented a list of notary applications for commission approval. This month we have Ann Dyes with the Palace Health and Rehab Center, Lisa K. Rodriguez with OES Equipment, Courtney Crawford with Core Civic, Randall Kirby with Old Mac Kirby's Farm, and then Courtney Dix, which is self-employed. All right, do we have a motion? Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Whitaker. Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carried. Now we move on to the exciting time for this meeting here. This is the District 3 Commissioner candidates. There's kind of a generic form on page 33 of there, but we have 4 candidates that's come forward this evening. They have spoke with Mr. Paxson. They are vetted through his office. And Mr. Beller, if you want to speak to anything on this regarding we can decide to appoint or postpone the appointment if the commission needs more time to consider. We do have 120 days from the acknowledgement of the resignation of the appointment of our previous appointment. So we have any questions for anybody yet? Nope. Okay, moving forward, we're going to call everybody up in alphabetical order, no favoritism or anything like that. But our first candidate up there, I guess, is Linda Bruce. If you want to come up and speak, please.
Bruce. I used to be commissioner 2014 to 2021 for District 5, and then I relocated to District 3. But at that time, I didn't run. Excuse me. I've been a caregiver for my aunt. A lot of people know she's 98. She passed away like 2 weeks ago. So it gives me more time again to get back in the community. And I've had a few people ask me in the past, to run for that district, but at that time it wasn't a good time. So had a couple more asked, so I thought, they needed someone for filling this term, so I'm here.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Ms. Bruce? Gary?
How long did you serve before, Linda?
From 2014 to 2021, almost 7 years. I'd almost.
Yeah, that was like 7 years.
I almost finished my term, but then moved. But then I think when it came back up, I didn't do it again. I kind of hands going forward at that time. So.
Anybody else have any questions for Ms. Bruce? Thank you, Linda. Number 2 here in alphabetical order, we have James Bowers, likes to go by Jimmy.
Good evening. Jimmy. Moved to Hartsville in October of 2020. I raised a family here. I've got 3 small kids, 9, 8, and 2. I love watching this community grow. I believe that growth is good for the community as long as it's planned growth. And I've been wanting to somehow be a part of the community for some time now. This was brought to my attention by several individuals in the community. So I thought, hey, why not put my hat in the ring for this? So here I am.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Bowers? Okay, thank you so much. Okay, number 3 is Chris Franklin. Come on up, sir.
Hello, my name is Chris Franklin. I moved to the community back in 2018. A woman brought me to Hartsville. And I've been watching the commission meetings for the last 3 years. I'm trying to find a way to help the community. That's why I'm putting my name in the hat.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Chris? Okay, thank you. And then we have John Scott.
My name is John Scott. I live at 795 Oglesby Road. I moved there September 2020. My wife and I bought the A lot of you guys can know my children before you know me. You know Joe and, John and Tina. My son-in-law, Randy Summers. You all know him. I'll offer you a little bit of my resume for years. I was a superintendent for a general contractor building water and wastewater plants. At times I've had as many as 100 men plus subcontractors in my charge. I've worked all over Georgia, Oklahoma, Texas, Tennessee. And I've done jobs from $500,000 to $50 million. 2015, I had to have a liver transplant due to an inherited disease. So I had to quit that job, and when I was in the Army, I was a combat medic, but I went back to nursing school here. And since that time, once I graduated, that's what I've been doing as a nurse. I retired December of 23, and I'm still working part-time. And what I do is I work with drug addicts and alcoholics. And I do that part-time to make a few dollars to help. So, I'm retired. I've come to love this county. Like I said, all my kids graduated high school here. There's good people in this county. And I think they all need to be represented. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you, Mr. Ford.
Yes.
What brought you to Hartsville?
What brought me to Hartsville? Years ago, I'm 63. So back when I was 18, 19 years old, my cousin and I, once we graduated high school, just took a road trip and we drove through here. And I told him one day I'm coming back here. I don't know when, but one day I will. And I was actually out in Denver doing a job, and my wife and I moved back here July of 1998. And this is where I decided we were coming. So here I am.
Anybody else have any questions for Mr. John? Okay, thank you, sir. So, yes, at this time, I'm going to defer to our council, please.
All right. You've heard from the prospective candidates for filling the vacancy that's in District 3. As part of the law and as stated by the chair previously, this county legislative body is required to make an appointment to fill a vacancy within 120 days of receiving notice of the vacancy. The notice of vacancy has gone out. We're within our 120 days. I think we've got about another 60 days. Is that right? Okay, so we've got more time than so you're not under the gun or anything of that nature. First question out of the gate is for this body is whether or not you want to consider this tonight or you want to postpone it to another meeting. Give yourself an opportunity to consider the candidates because this is the first time they've been presented. And then if you decide you want to go ahead and proceed tonight, then I'll go ahead and go over the law as it pertains to filling that vacancy. I will remind everyone that in order for anyone for a county legislative body to consider on a motion or a resolution for an office to be filled, the chair has to have the registered voters of the county an opportunity to submit names to the county legislative body for consideration. That has been done. The names may be submitted in writing to the chair prior to the meeting or may be submitted in person at the meeting. That also has been done. In order for a name to be considered, a member of the county legislative body must subsequently nominate the person. So any candidate that would have to be nominated, it doesn't require a second, but they would have to be nominated from this body. The members of the county legislative body may also nominate a candidate or candidate to fill the office of vacancy without the name being submitted by a voter. However, if a person nominated is not present at the meeting, the person making the nomination shall submit a signed statement from the nominee that the nominee is willing to serve in the office if appointed. So if you have someone like that, you can also consider that as well. So I guess the first question for this body is whether or not you want to consider this tonight or you want to postpone it to the March meeting.
So this would be a roll call vote. It says right here for this. So I guess a yes to proceed tonight and a no to postpone. Would that be correct?
Yes. Okay, no motion.
Make a motion to do it tonight.
Second.
Motion by Bubba and Chris is our second. You say, all right. So all in favor with moving forward tonight? Any opposed? So moved.
Open it up for nominations.
Okay, so we'll open the floor now for nominations.
And again, the nominations do not require a second.
Mr. Thomas?
Nominate John Scott.
I nominate Linda Johnson. Bruce, sorry.
Nominate Chris Franklin.
Is there
Yeah,
any
we
other
nominate.
I'm sorry? I don't know. He'll have to ask on that. Can one commissioner nominate more than one?
I'll nominate James Bowers.
So now in observance of Robert's Rules of Order, will there be any other nominations? Will there be any other nominations? Will there be any other nominations? Okay, I'll take a motion for the nominations to cease. Jerry, and do we have a second? By Chris, okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried.
All right, now that the body is going to consider the election of the candidate that would fill the vacancy. The rules that are required under the statute is that there has to be a majority. And that majority is obviously reduced by one by virtue of the fact that there's a vacancy. So you have 19 members of the commission. We don't have one present tonight, but regardless of whether or not we have one present, the majority of that was required in order to elect someone is 10 votes. So that is is what is required. Now, having said that, being the 10 votes, typically in times past, this body can adopt the rules on how you want to proceed. You can go all night long till someone gets 10 votes, or you can proceed with the top 2 vote getters. If that's what you want to do, that's what has been done in times past. Take the top 2 vote getters and those have a runoff. So that being proceeded, at some point when you start voting, you're just going to have to call out who you want to, who you've elected. So, and there's no secret ballot. So it's got to be a roll call voice vote. So.
And a motion to do it for the 2, like you just.
Do we need a motion to move it that way? So we do a runoff
I would
between
do,
two?
I would do a motion to do it that way. And now keep in mind, tiebreakers are broken as any other election would be. So if there's a tie, and if there's a tie at the first 2, those are your top 2 vote getters. But if there's a tie in the second place, your chair breaks that vote. Okay, so the chair would be in that situation. So
With the chair break the vote or with the mayor? Our rules on a tie, the mayor breaks the vote.
my apologies.
That's what I thought.
I got both of them sitting next to me, so I did really good till you called me out. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so everyone understands the rules then. Does anyone have any questions? Someone moved to
To
someone
do a
adopt
2-person runoff on the top 2.
Yeah.
Who's second?
those.
Landon, okay, thank you. So all in favor? Any opposed? So moved, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, she calls it out and they have to declare who,
Call their name and they tell me who they.
yeah, call the commissioner's name and they tell you who voted.
Beverly Atwood. Which one would you?
Beverly?
Here, see that.
Who do you want to vote for?
Your vote? I'm sorry, Mr. Gully?
So, I'm just trying to be clear here. We are naming the one of these 4 that we wish to be the candidate at this point. And we're looking for the top 2 to go to the next.
For the runoff.
I'm just making sure I'm clear on that.
Beverly? Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Bruce,
Tommy Belcher. Alan Carmen. Brian Crook,
Abstain.
Will Dennis,
Bruce.
Jerry Ford,
Bruce Johnson.
Bruce,
Bruce.
Chris Gregory,
Franklin.
Jeff Gregory,
Miss Bruce.
Bubba Gregory,
Miss Bruce.
Landon Gully,
John Scott.
Judy Kerr,
John Scott.
David Noner,
Ms. Bruce.
Leslie Overman,
Miss Bruce.
Mark Presley,
Chris Franklin.
Amber Russell,
Miss Bruce.
Lonnie Taylor,
Miss Bruce.
David Thomas,
John Scott.
Steve Whitaker. John Scott has 3. Miss Bruce has 12. Chris Franklin has 2. And Jimmy has 0. So we have John and Linda. Those are top 2.
She has another one.
Yes, Mr. Thomas.
With Miss Bruce getting more than 10, is that not a done deal at this point?
That's a question for our council here.
Well, you adopted the rules the way we stated it. It's the top 2, so you're gonna have to go ahead another round. All right, so that's the compliance with what but you've got multiple candidates. Nobody knows what's gonna happen, but you need to abide by the rules you adopted. So that would be Ms. Bruce and Mr. Scott, is that correct? All right.
Y'all ready?
Here we go.
Beverly Atwood,
Bruce.
Tommy Belcher, Alan Carmen, Brian Crook,
Abstain.
Will Dennis, Jerry Ford,
Ms. Bruce.
Chris Gregory,
Bruce.
Jeff Gregory,
Bruce.
Bubba Gregory,
Bruce.
Landon Gully,
John Scott.
Judy Kerr,
Bruce.
David Noner,
Bruce.
Leslie Overman, Mark Presley,
Ms. Bruce.
Amber Russell,
Miss Bruce.
Lonnie Taylor,
Miss Bruce.
David Thomas,
John Scott.
Steve Whitaker.
So the tally was 15 and 2, and with one abstain. Thank you. So congratulations, Linda. We appreciate your willingness to serve. Does she make a speech? Jerry was asking that question. All righty. Is there any other business that needs to come before the commission tonight? Anybody have anything? Yes, Mark.
County court would be deciding, lead her about the jail. Will we be deciding stuff on that the next week?
Mayor.
Yes, next week.
Yes, we'll have more information then.
We'll have more information to make that decision whether or not to go ahead. Great question. Thank you.
A brief housekeeping note, just so that we all stay on the same track here. The chairman of each subcommittee will be the one that'll be kind of the point person that's leading each one of the subcommittees and what, in each of the topics that they're doing. I like to encourage everybody, if there's things that's happening in a subcommittee that you are not a member of, please go to their meeting and get some education, chime in, state your point there at the subcommittee meetings so that your voice can be heard. And just like somebody can, easily ask to be removed from a subcommittee, you can also, if there's one that you are not on, that you feel that you have something to lend to it, or there's a point of interest where you need to be, you can always request to be added to a subcommittee. Okay, I just want to make sure that everybody understands that it's not, that's how that street will operate both directions. But I've learned a lot attending subcommittee meetings that I'm not a member of. There's a lot of sensitive topics that come up from time to time, and it's best to get the information firsthand. So by all means, take a look at the calendar. If there's something coming up, a topic, set in on those meetings and get the information. Yes, Linda?
That I've worked in the past with and look forward to trying to help all I can to get through the term.
Thank you. All righty. Has anybody signed in that wished to speak? Nope. Well, at this juncture, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Thank you. Yeah. Well, thank you.